Did you ever imagine that Kim Taehyung, the beloved V of BTS, could vanish without a single trace, without even the most loyal army suspecting a thing? What could possibly compel a global superstar to slip away under the radar, board a plane to Japan, and remain out of sight for days that no one can fully account for? As the world tries to piece together fragments of this baffling timeline, one chilling question persists. Was this truly a personal escape, or is something far more complicated, and perhaps even dangerous, brewing behind closed doors? In an era where every movement of BTS members is tracked by cameras, blogs, and millions of fans, Taehyung's disappearance has ignited a firestorm of confusion, speculation, and, for some, profound unease. On June 29th, while social media swirled with theories about his whereabouts, some innocently assuming he was quietly resting in Seoul, Taehyung had already boarded an international flight to Tokyo. Nobody knew. Not the casual observer. Not the overzealous paparazzi. Not even, according to several unverified reports, the majority of HYB's staff. How is this possible? How does the most visible idol in the modern age slip through the cracks of a system designed to ensure that nothing escapes public notice? When Taehyung re-emerged days later, appearing at Incheon airport on July 1st, fans first felt a rush of relief. But almost immediately, relief curdled into disbelief as one detail after another began to surface. Witnesses described him as composed, but subtly tense, almost as if he had rehearsed a version of himself he intended the cameras to see. Could it be that he was deliberately hiding traces of what had really transpired in Japan? Was there a secret meeting waiting for him in the shadows of Tokyo's neon skyline? Social media erupted with photos of Taehyung walking briskly through arrivals, head down beneath a dark bucket hat. Some fans noted he carried almost no luggage, a detail that only fuels the mystery. How could someone vanish abroad with nothing but a small black backpack? What could he have possibly left behind or brought back with him? Curiously, no official statement has been issued by HYB to clarify the purpose of Taehyung's trip. Some industry insiders have whispered that this silence is not accidental. Is the agency struggling to contain the narrative? Could they be shielding Taehyung from a brewing controversy that has yet to be made public? Others have speculated that Taehyung's disappearance was not related to business, but something deeply personal. Unconfirmed rumors claim he met a high-profile figure, perhaps an industry executive, perhaps a friend, perhaps someone whose identity would ignite a scandal if revealed. Who exactly did he go to see? And why the secrecy? If it were truly so innocent, the absence of an explanation has only intensified scrutiny. Fans are combing through every snippet of video from that day, dissecting his expression frame by frame, searching for signs, anything, to make sense of this unprecedented vanishing act. Was he merely exhausted from relentless schedules? Was he escaping the suffocating pressures of global fame? Or did he have a mission that had to be carried out beyond the reach of even the tightest security? For those who have followed Taehyung's career from the beginning, this moment feels different. He has always been open, sometimes almost defiantly transparent, about his struggles and triumphs alike. So why choose now? In the middle of a delicate phase for BTS as members navigate military service and solo ambitions, to disappear without a word. The timing alone is enough to stoke suspicion. With Jin's discharge from the military fresh in headlines and speculation swirling about BTS's reunion, could Taehyung's absence signal an internal disagreement or fracture? Or was it a bid to renegotiate his place in the industry on his own terms, far from the watchful eyes of corporate handlers and curious fans? If this was merely a personal trip, why has no one close to Taehyung, none of the members, none of his known circle, come forward to simply say so? The silence has become its own echo, a void that grows more unsettling by the hour. Could it be that the truth of his disappearance is more explosive than anyone is ready to admit? Every detail becomes a potential clue. The fact that Taehyung traveled alone, the absence of an entourage, the lack of photographic evidence from his days in Japan, even his body language at Incheon, his eyes fixed on the floor, his hand briefly trembling as he adjusted his mask, has been replayed thousands of times by fans desperate to find a hidden meaning. Did he look relieved? Regretful? Determined? No consensus has emerged, only more questions. Industry watchers have noted that this is not the first time an idol has attempted to disappear temporarily, but never has a member of BTS done so without advance notice or at least a carefully prepared explanation. Taehyung has long been known for his fiercely independent streak, his willingness to do the unexpected. Yet this trip seems different in both scope and secrecy. Is it possible that it represents the start of a profound shift in his identity as an artist, or even a prelude to a separation from BTS? Some fans have reacted with empathy, insisting that if anyone deserves a few days of privacy, it is Taehyung. But others feel blindsided, betrayed by the realization that so much can happen behind closed doors while the rest of the world remains blissfully unaware. How do you reconcile an idol you thought you knew with a version who can slip away so completely? Adding to the intrigue is the total radio silence from Japanese media, who typically would not pass up an opportunity to report on a K-pop star's arrival. No photos of Taehyung dining out, shopping, or even checking into a hotel have emerged. Did he take extraordinary measures to remain hidden, or was someone helping him stay invisible? If you look carefully at the timeline, an unsettling picture begins to form. Taehyung departed Seoul on the afternoon of June 29th, at a time when fans assumed he was resting at home. He did not post on social media, and no trace of his location appeared in fan community updates or sightings. His arrival in Tokyo went unrecorded. For nearly 48 hours, no one can account for his precise movements. And even now, the only confirmation we have of his return is the footage from Incheon airport. Footage that raises more questions than it answers. When you strip away the assumptions, the PR spin, and the comforting narratives, you are left with the inescapable reality. Taehyung was gone. He chose to go. He chose not to tell. And the world is left to wonder why. Could the explanation be as simple as exhaustion? Or is this the first glimpse of a far more complex reality? One in which Taehyung must negotiate his identity beyond the confines of the group that made him a legend? Is there a new project that demanded absolute secrecy? Or a relationship that would never survive the harsh glare of public curiosity? If history has taught us anything, it's that idols live under a microscope so intense it can distort even the most innocent actions into scandal. But there is something about the blank spaces in this story that feels different, like a secret waiting to detonate. As Taehyung resumes his public life, smiling gently in photos and offering carefully measured words, the questions remain suspended in the air, as heavy as the silence that accompanied his disappearance. Why did he leave? What did he do in Japan? And what, if anything, has forever changed now that he has returned? For now, fans can only hold their breath and wait for answers, if they ever come at all. Because in this age of constant surveillance, perhaps the most shocking act of all is not what Taehyung did in Japan, but that he succeeded in vanishing at all. Will he speak? Will the truth surface? Or will this remain the greatest unsolved mystery in BTS history? And so the clock keeps ticking, each passing moment only amplifying the strange disquiet that surrounds Taehyung's unexplained absence. How does an icon of his magnitude manage to orchestrate an escape so flawlessly concealed that even obsessive fan networks, known to map idols' every step, were left groping in the dark? Was this an accident, or a meticulously calculated move meant to prove something? In the hours after Taehyung's return, airports became impromptu arenas of speculation. Some witnesses insisted he seemed content, perhaps relieved, as though some private burden had been temporarily lifted. Others described an air of unease that clung to him, a restlessness in the way he glanced over his shoulder before moving through customs. No matter how often the videos are replayed, the questions remain more vivid than any answer. And what of the official silence from HYB? A company renowned for its swift, often preemptive crisis management, now choosing to let rumors fester unchallenged. Could it be that any comment, any clarification, would only stoke a fire they fear is already smoldering out of control? Why refuse to explain something so seemingly benign? Unless the real story is anything but, speculation metastasizes in the vacuum. Theories, each more elaborate than the last, take root among fans desperate for clarity. Some believe Taehyung traveled to Japan to finalize confidential business agreements connected to an unprecedented solo venture. Others are convinced he met with undisclosed figures from the Japanese entertainment industry, executives, perhaps, who might become crucial allies in a future project no one has dared to announce. And yet, a darker narrative has begun to take hold. A possibility that he wasn't just slipping away for creative freedom or personal reflection, but instead grappling with something so intensely private that even his closest confidants could not be trusted to know. Could the secret be a personal crisis? A health scare? A hidden relationship that, if exposed, would upend every carefully cultivated image? Each theory finds fertile ground, fueled by the very absence of facts. Every new day without explanation feels like proof that the truth is more complicated than any official statement would ever dare admit. Perhaps most unnerving of all is the dawning realization that this is not just a blip in the carefully plotted career of Kim Taehyung. It may be the first unmistakable sign of how far he is willing to go to claim ownership over his story, even if it means fracturing the illusion of intimacy that has always bound him to his fans. How does an entire fandom reconcile the reality that they never really knew where he was or what he was doing? And worse, that maybe they were never supposed to days later. The footage of Taehyung walking through Incheon remains the only tangible evidence that any of this even happened. He appears almost spectral in those brief clips, part exhausted idol, part enigmatic stranger. In every frame, there is a tension that feels impossible to pin down, an unspoken declaration that whatever occurred in Japan will remain, at least for now, his secret alone. Some fans have argued that to demand answers is to betray Taehyung's humanity. They insist he deserves, at minimum, the right to vanish when the weight of global attention becomes too crushing to bear. And maybe they are right. But the flip side of unprecedented fame is unprecedented scrutiny, a reality that no amount of compassion can erase. When you become a symbol, every unexplained movement becomes a potential scandal. Every missing hour becomes a mystery waiting to be dissected, and so the questions keep multiplying, each more insistent than the last. Why now? Why Japan? Why the vanishing act when the world is already hungry for any scrap of certainty about BTS's future? Was it simply coincidence, or the quiet declaration of independence that has been building for years? The most haunting possibility is that Taehyung knew exactly what he was doing, and exactly what it would set in motion. That in slipping away without permission, without explanation, he was testing the limits of a machine built to consume every moment of his life. That by disappearing, he was reminding everyone that, in the end, he still belongs to himself first. Yet even this theory leaves something unresolved. If this was merely a personal rebellion, why is the silence so total? Why do insiders, normally eager to leak even trivial details, now retreat behind a wall of evasions? What threat, or promise, could possibly bind so many people to such unnatural discretion? For longtime followers of BTS, this story has become an uncomfortable mirror, reflecting the limits of even the most fervent devotion. It is a lesson that no amount of hashtags or trending topics can compel the truth to surface if the person at the center chooses silence over confession. There are whispers, too, that Taehyung's escape may have set a precedent that others in the group will soon follow. That this moment marks not just a personal threshold, but the start of a broader reckoning with the suffocating demands of perpetual visibility. Could this be the beginning of an unraveling that will force fans, the industry, and the idols themselves to finally confront the unsustainable pressures that have defined the last decade of K-pop? It is possible, of course, that the mystery will fade. That in a few days, weeks, or months, Taehyung will offer a casual explanation that renders all of this speculation moot. Perhaps he was simply exhausted. Perhaps he wanted to remember what it felt like to be unknown. Perhaps nothing happened in Japan at all. But until that day comes, if it ever comes, there is no escaping the sensation that something pivotal has shifted, because even now, as the frenzy begins to ebb, the core question persists like an echo you can't outrun. Why did he leave, and why did no one know? It is a question that haunts every replay of that arrival video. A question that undercuts every reassurance that all is well. A question that, if you look closely, you can almost see flickering behind Taehyung's guarded gaze as he walked back into the lights of the cameras he had evaded so completely. What happened in those lost hours? What did he carry back across the sea? And perhaps most unsettling of all, what happens next?